Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Island of Misfit Toys is proud to bring to you Toy Connection and the man, the myth, the puppet himself, Rolf.
Hurry up! You told me not to talk to strangers. I don't know what you think you're doing. I'll be right there. Rolf, did you lock the door to the bathroom again? I guess it's just you and me today, buddy.
That's fine. I like you better anyways.
Did you hear that? No. What did he say? He says Transformers suck, and Bret Hart's gonna lose to the sharpshooter to the Mountie, something like that. I think he's pissed. I hear pounding on the door.
Tell him Dunkin' Donuts coffee is better than Tim Hortons.
Hortons something.
He's so passive aggressive.
All he has to say is, I want to make new friends, and I'll get him his own camera, I'll get him his own microphone, and all that. You know, I mean,
I can't work the mouse.
Yeah, I know you don't have real thumbs because you're a Muppet. But anyway, I think we're here to talk wrestling or something like that. Sorry for the tacky interruption with my mutt and all that. But yeah, I'm here now.
You know what? I hate to say it, but our little intro there has been better than what's been on some of the wrestling shows lately. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk the good, the bad, and the ugly of AEW and WWE. The champs are here. Give a quick shout out to everybody in the chat. We have Mr. Comstock, Mr. Swordsman himself. Howdy, sir. Dale, thanks for joining, bud. And then we also have Axe and Jay. Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I know this was kind of a late live stream for the Island of Misfit Toys, but when it comes to wrestling, me and Ken have both had this really bad itch to talk wrestling. So let's get to it. Oh, Nolan just joined as well, too.
Hey, Nolan, good to see you. And everybody else, too.
Exactly. How long have you been a wrestling fan?
I mean, I first bought my first LJ and Mendes figure back in '87, but I didn't know anything about wrestling at all. And then I had a sticker album, which I guess was the Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling one. And then in '89 is when I actually started watching wrestling, because somebody rented WrestleMania 5 and brought it over to my house to watch. And that's when I saw Macho Man versus Hulk Hogan for the first time. And that was my introduction to wrestling, and I've been a fan ever since. Yeah, there have been some down years here and there, some in-between breaks and all that, but nothing beats talking. Well, few things beat talking wrestling. Let's put it that way. No, nothing beats talking wrestling. I just need a beer right now.
Very few. I have been a fan since 1980. I was all of 4 years.
Wow.
AWA. Going to Kmart, seeing those wrestling figures for the very first time, plus having that wooden death ring, you know, that one with the wooden post in there where if you fell on him as a kid, it would just, impale you. But man, was that fun.
So AWA would mean like you were a fan of the territory days. Like we could talk the territories, the Vern Gagne, the Von Erichs. Like I could talk the Von Erichs territory just because I love the documentaries about the Von Erich dynasty. That would be a great episode someday, Tales from the Territories.
Well, yeah, they're doing something like that.
They're doing that anyway. Yeah.
But yeah, for me, territory wrestling was always a big deal, whether it was Mid-Atlantic. You also had Mid-South, tape traders renting those videos. World-class championship wrestling on ESPN, that just blew my mind, just with the storylines, how the Von Erichs and the Freebirds fought each other. Plus, you had Gino Hernandez. You had
Kamala was there for a while. Bruiser Brody.
Undertaker, Steve Austin, Percy Pringle, so many people came through that Texas territory. And then you can go to Stampede with the Hearts. I mean, Stu and his kids, they had so many wrestlers that came through there as well, too.
I know when World Class tried to break off in '86, the problem with that is Vince kind of Vince's grip was strengthening on the industry. And I know that by the time '87 came along with WrestleMania 3, the territories were basically just down to like the only powerhouse at the time was Jim Crockett by WrestleMania 3. That was the only territory that could take on Vince, right?
And then he ended up into bankruptcy, and if it wasn't for Ted Turner, Vince would have owned everything a lot earlier.
Well, yeah. I mean, I know that by 87, 88, 89, I know technically World Class was still around. I know technically the UWF was still around and AWA was still around, but I think it was getting obvious that they were on the downcline, right? It was basically just down to Vince and Crockett in those early WrestleManias, like between WrestleMania 2 and WrestleMania 5. I think it was just the two. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I was literally like 4, 5, 6 years old at the time, so my memory isn't as vivid. But
A lot of the territories did try to get together and have like a Supercade, a Super Show, but
Super Clash.
unfortunately it didn't work out because Vince had New York and he had all the pay-per-view companies, so he could put pressure on them to not show those. I think he did that to Starcade.
He did that in Starcade 87. I know because I'm working on an 87 history video right now. I was just looking for a bit of confirmation bias on your end, but I'm hearing it anyways. That yes, in 87, he WrestleMania 3, he basically said, if you carry Starcade, you can't have WrestleMania 4. Is basically what he told people. So you got to choose Survivor Series or Star. I don't know. Was this? I can't remember. It was something like that. It was either you can't carry the Bunkhouse Stampede or you can't carry Starcade or something like that.
Yeah, and he was basically just flexing to stop them. But if you talk my ultimate favorite territory, there's only one, and that's Memphis. Because those crazy people in Memphis, the Jerrys basically, they created sports entertainment, and they did such a job of it. We'll have to do that one day. See, Dale, yep.
There you go, Dale.
So, but we're here to talk AEW, and we're here to talk WWE, so let's start with the good. Ken, I'm going to start with you. What's the good for AEW for you and the good for WWE?
So, the good could almost be the ugly in this case. No, I'm going to go with it being the good. MJF, everything from him returning at the end of the last pay-per-view, coming in, winning the casino ladder match, unmasking, confronting CM Punk at the end, his meteoric rise, reestablishment. That to me is the good, because it's showing that the homegrown talent is still going to take over in the long term, right? Yeah, they tried it with Hangman Page, middling success with his run. Hangman will always have my support as a wrestling follower, but a lot of people felt that his run was not as epic as it could have been for a homegrown talent. But I don't think they'll make that mistake with MJF. To me, MJF, his current trajectory is the good. WWE, Triple H taking over. Long uphill battle, but he's taken over. And he's got the wrestling mind. He's in the prime business era of his life. So to me, that's what's going to make WWE tick going forward, is the new management to trend it in the right direction. What about you?
For me, the good for AEW is going to be MJF. I think MJF is a strong enough personality that he's not going to let the bad booking or the bad dumb ideas get in the way. I think the other thing that's good about AEW is it's an alternative to WWE, and it's almost like a circus where there's something for everybody in AEW. So if you like the Japanese style or the lucha style, you'll get that. If you like the comedy acts or what I like to call wrestling theater from the indies, you'll get that. You'll get the serious wrestlers mixed in as well too. So it gives you a very broad choice of wrestlers to really look from. The good for the WWE is I'm going to go with Triple H. Again, I agree with you. He's bringing in wrestlers that he worked with in NXT that had success in NXT, and he's also letting those wrestlers get rid of some really bad gimmicks too. So whether it's LA Knight getting rid of that male model bullshit, or it's Karrion Kross getting rid of the S&M outfits, it's, that kind of stuff that makes the difference for the WWE becoming good, in my opinion.
Yep, fair enough. And is Gunther still Gunther? Or I wonder if he's going to go back to Walter and be the...
He's still Gunther, but I think they've invested so much in merch and different stuff like that they have to kind of keep it Gunther.
Okay.
If they let him go back to Walter, that would be just awesome,
Okay.
in my opinion.
I was gonna say, because somebody who could have been in the main event 2 years ago in WWE, Walter.
Yeah. And Vince never saw it because he didn't have the body. Where, if you look through wrestling history, Dusty Rhodes never had the body. But damn, Dusty was over. Adrian Adonis. You can just keep, Jake Roberts was so over, but he never had the
he didn't have the body. I mean, Adrian Adonis was like a true mid-carder, though. Like he didn't do that much, if you ask me. Or are you talking about the non-WWE days?
The non-WWE stuff.
Okay. I was gonna say in WWE he was sort of just there. He didn't really do that much. So,
but Jerry Lawler was king in Memphis, and he didn't have the body. Ric Flair was, he looked like $1 million, but he didn't have that Hogan-esque type, Lex
Warrior,
Luger.
yeah,
chemically enhanced, but that's what it is. All right, let's talk the bad. So I'll start with this. The bad for WWE is, what? They were so bad for so long. They were, if I'm giving them a grade under Vince in the last 2 years, it was an F. So even with Triple H coming back, they're only at a D, which seems like a big improvement, but they still have a long way to go to get back to gaining the trust of the fans that they're going to do what's right for the business and not have writers and creative that write to just one person, but that they listen to what the fans want and let them help decide the futures of some of these superstars. The other part of that bad is, and I'm hoping it changes, is Vince and company stopped developing superstars and worried more about developing WWE. John Cena, CM Punk were kind of like really the last superstars before Roman's made his meteoric, rise, but they haven't created those superstars like they'd had in the past. For the WWE, it's Tony Khan has too many hats, and it's too disjointed. And, with AEW, if they can quit having Twitter fights and fights in the back, life will get a lot better for everyone. So I'll hand it over to you. The bad for you.
So with WWE, kind of what you're talking about as well, but like I have a different sort of like word picture for the F to D grade thing. Triple H is taking over, and I said that's a good thing. But he's taken over in the middle of a smoking crater with utter nothing but destruction around him. And he's having to rebuild one mortar block at a time. So the ugly is the smoking crater that they are sitting in. And we're picking things out like, okay, the Roman heel turn from a couple of years ago. Bray Wyatt is back. Randy Orton still has influence. AJ Styles showcasing his talent. Drew McIntyre showcasing better microphone skills. Bobby Lashley in the main event scene after being a mid-carder all those years. I still say that's great. Now these are all little nuggets. These are all your mortar blocks. You're still in the middle of the crater and you still haven't built out of it. That's kind of the word picture I'm coming up with, is you have all these elements, but it all hasn't come together yet. We can't see the beautiful city that's going to rise from this smoking ash-filled crater, right? The pieces are there, everything's ready to go, but how are you going to build it up? And do we know that it's going to be a beautiful city when it's done? Or is it just going to be something run-of-the-mill average? They'll peak at this level, and then, they'll never be what they once were. With Triple H in charge, I think there's a lot of potential for it to have what I'm going to wager in a few years' time becomes the third greatest era of wrestling. 1 and 2, depending on your preference, being either the golden years of the Hulkamania through early 90s era and the Attitude Era. Those are frequently the top 2 that people talk about. Yes, there's some fans who love the Ruthless Aggression era, which I did as well for certain reasons. But the brand split, to me, is the reason why Ruthless Aggression era is not as immortalized. So basically what I'm trying to say is that the bad is the crater that they're in. Right. Good luck trying to get out of this smoking crater right now that Vince let fester. AEW
and Vince also destroyed a lot of those talent.
Mm-hmm.
Drew McIntyre was Braveheart. Every Latino wrestler is a Lothario snake oil salesman, any, Asian character is Asuka, or, it's the stereotypical treatment of these wrestlers. Even Kevin Owens, who is as edgy as they come, he destroyed him. So, Trips has a like, you're right. It's a crater, and it's like, can you grow anything there? I mean, is it just too poisoned? So great points. For
AEW. For AEW, the unfortunate thing is that they can't. AEW, the issue is traction. They get the ball rolling, and it looks like it's going to snowball something big. And all of a sudden, as the snowball goes, it stops because it hits the bottom of a little dip, and then the rest of the ball's got to get pushed uphill now. And I'll give you the best example of that. All Out. CM Punk comes back, wins a hard-fought match, and your mileage will vary about whether you like that match or not. I enjoyed it in the moment. My friend Peter did not enjoy it and said that he only enjoyed the part at the end when the lights came out and MJF came out. But between that, the Bucks winning the trios title, say what you will about the Bucks, maybe they wanted them to be the first trios champion just for the name lineage, like Cody being the first TNT champion or Jericho being the first world champion or whatever, right? Maybe they just wanted the name on the lineage. But having to vacate the title right away because of a backstage fight, the ugly right now, not the ugly, we'll get to that. The bad is either it's the poor chemistry at the top of the card, the egos that ruined some really good moments. CM Punk winning the title back for his fans was big. Him going off with Tony Khan sitting right next to him, a lot of people would say that disrespecting your boss, right? Now, that's,
but it should have never have got there, because this was been festering and building to that point where,
bam, there you go. The bad is the fallout and the fact they had to recover from such a hot mess after All Out. Everything that happened in the locker room, the fact that Jericho and Moxley were not booked that Wednesday, and suddenly Tony Khan's calling them saying, "You got to come in. I need you because I have to suspend Omega, the Bucks, and CM Punk." So the bad is they get in their own way and they can't keep the momentum going when something big happens. A lot of people wanted CM Punk to come back and have a redemption match. I wanted him to win that match. But what's happening after? Nothing. They couldn't capitalize on it. They had to put the belt back on Moxley, get new trios champions, suspend 3 of their VPs, right? That's what I mean by lack of traction. Maybe that's a bad way to put it, but I think you followed my belt.
Yeah, they shoot themselves in the foot. They take those 2 steps forward, and then it's 4 steps back.
Bam.
And if Tony would have said to, Adam Page, shut your damn mouth, or come out and said, I moved Colt Cabana to Ring of Honor because I decided to do that, and CM Punk had nothing to do with this. But it's that backstage bullshit politics. I'm a huge CM Punk fan. I'm not a fan of Bucks. I'm not a fan of Omega. It has nothing to do with, I've just seen how they've acted for so many years in Ring of Honor and New Japan, even in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. They're spoiled, rotten children. Okay. And when he cut that promo like he did, number one, why are you having a media scrum with your wrestlers? Why even invite something like that to happen? And it's like, Tony, grow the hell up. They just wrestled. It's raw emotion. You're having problems. Cut that crap out and solve yourself. You've lost your biggest draw in CM Punk because he crosses over to mainstream media. Jericho did the same thing. Bryan Danielson does the same thing. You need those big names in your company for advertiser, for your television, for media all over the world. You need those big names to help drive sales, drive tickets, put more money in the coffers so that you can make money and not have all friends wrestling instead.
That's the thing. Khan was a friend and a fan of these people before he was their boss. And they always looked at him that way, right? He was 37 or something, or 36 when he took over the company. You know, he wasn't terribly old. I always said that a run with CM Punk on top as champion, because his first run got shortened because of the injured foot. That's the name value you need to bring wrestling back into mainstream awareness. Exactly what you said. Jericho does that. Punk was the next guy to do it. And they never got, again, my word, traction with CM Punk's title run. Imagine mainstream media is doing things like, oh, CM Punk is champion. Oh, I know CM Punk. Yeah, CM Punk's champion. You know how many times I watched for months and months at a time his AEW return on Rampage, that Rampage Grant, I don't know what was the name. Either way, it was the show they sold out in Chicago. I watched that return like 6, 7, 8 times the first night it came out. I watched it every day for months and months. I was so happy to see that kind of crowd reaction because it screamed of potential for AEW. I'm like, this is where they're going to grab that traction.
Yep.
Yeah, CM Punk got injured after. Yeah, he didn't win the belt for a while after. But the media scrum was so bad, right? And it just comes down to, yeah, why were the wrestlers there? You know, why did you allow this to happen, kind of thing?
Vince said it best, you know, when he said Brett screwed Brett. No, Tony screwed Tony by not nipping this in the bud to begin with. And I get that the elite, you know, I know there's some sore feelings because he's brought in a lot of other wrestlers that have taken some of that spotlight away from them. Mm-hmm. But, you know, Hangman Page beat Omega, and that was like the big thing that should have put Page over the top and let that run as him be champion, be something special. But it was a popcorn fart because he doesn't have the charisma. He needs to be that guy on top. And you can like Adam Page as a wrestler. Look, Chris Benoit was a great wrestler. You know, there's been a number of great wrestlers out there, but there's only a few guys that can carry that belt and be champion and be able to put people's asses in seats, as they say.
And still wrestle at the top level. I don't know how big a draw he was, but all the hardcore fans for sure loved how he could wrestle and his mic skills eventually. Kurt Angle.
Yes.
Kurt Angle's an excellent example of a guy who could wrestle better than anyone. And he developed mic skills and charisma. I'm not sure how well his merchandising did, but Kurt Angle is a marketable champion in any case, regardless of whether he's a short-term champion or a long-term champion. He's a believable champion on top.
But Kurt Angle also had a lot of great characters and wrestlers around him who he could feed off of.
He did.
And they could set him up to be successful. Paul Heyman said it best. You focus on the positives and hide the negatives. You know, if you
he said that about ECW.
Yeah, because he had to push what was positive about all of these guys and then hide those negatives. Look, I know Tony's learning how to do a lot of this stuff, but you know, you if you're going to put Page in that spot as world champion, you have to have programming out there that puts him in that positive light, and he needs to have that connection with the fans. And it's not just the AEW base of fans, because he has that connection with them. It's everybody else. So,
Phil,
yeah.
See you, Phil. Yeah. There's so much we could go on about on this particular topic, because what made some of these wrestlers great? Angle had people to work with. You know, he had the late Attitude Era guys, you know, and he had the Ruthless Aggression guys. He had everybody to work with, from Benoit to Guerrero to Jericho to Austin,
Taker,
Michaels, Taker, Triple H, Rock.
Yep.
Edge.
You know, all of those guys. They all made him
early Randy Orton.
Yeah. All right, let's go ugly now. We're going to hand it off to you first. What's the ugly of WWE and the ugly of AEW? I think we've hit on some of the points, but
ugly, I'm going to define as something that people don't necessarily like, but it's necessary. Grudgingly necessary, depending on your point of view. A lot of caveats there. Roman's super duper extended title run.
Yes.
if he's not going to be champ, a lot of people say he needs to lose the belt. But to who? And if there's nobody else, he keeps going with the belt. At Clash at the Castle, I really, really wanted Drew to win it. I think Drew can carry it. But again, it comes down to the word I had earlier, traction. Has Drew built himself enough of traction? Because when he takes the belt from Roman, they don't want to be like, oh, we made a mistake, we got to give it back a month later. Drew's not going to be a transition champion. When he takes the belt, right, unless there's an injury, but when he takes the belt, he's going to take the belt and he's going to hold on to it for 6 to 10 months, probably.
Yeah.
But there's no one to really dethrone Roman right now. Obviously, there's a few candidates. There's Bray. There's always Lashley. But with Roman being your merchandising machine right now, which I think he is, I don't have numbers to back this up, but it just feels like he is. It's that necessary evil that he has to be on top. I hope Drew is the one to beat him, right? Drew has not had, Roman's had his number every time, right? Royal Rumble final notwithstanding, and that's just because the fans turned on, / never were with him as a single star. They were with him in the Shield. Fans I'm talking about.
I think with Shield though, especially, they were more with Moxley and with Seth Rollins, more so than what they were with Roman.
Well, Roman was the muscle, right?
Yeah, but no, and I think what's up, Gas, Matthew, and Phil? I think you hit it on the head. Don't take the belt off Roman and give it to somebody if you don't have a program for them to run with it afterwards, because you can't just take the belt off somebody and then the next pay-per-view go, oh, we're gonna give it back to Roman now because Drew didn't have that. No, don't do that.
And I do think Drew can be that person, but they need to have a big program for him after. And if they hadn't already played the Randy Orton program, that could have been his program. Now, could they find something to do between Drew and Bray? I mean, I'm not sure who's in what brand right now because I haven't watched it in a month or two. But yeah, like if they had a program for Drew to build himself up, because the pieces are in place, right? Like Roman, the issue is he hasn't had somebody to work with consistently, but the issue is less on that and more on the fact that they just haven't used those other people properly. If you build up Roman and he's got Lashley, Bray, Drew to work with, brand split notwithstanding, could really build him up. But right? Orton's still around?
Yeah, he's hurt though right now, but
true.
Look for guys who need that belt to help push them to that next level too. And we saw how many times where it was Roman versus Brock Lesnar or just so many times that it takes that specialness away from it. Give it to somebody who needs to have that title to push them to that next level. I don't think Bray needs it. I would love to have Bray do his own program, let him reestablish himself, and then if Undertaker always having the title didn't make sense to me because he was too spooky, right? It didn't make sense for him to have that title. Same kind of thing with Bray. Like if he's the world heavyweight champion, how do you have him go out and do media, while he's in the Fiend mask, for example? You can't. So I think it goes back to those titles. Flair carried the NWA title for so many years because Flair could go to those different territories and help those territories get over. So, and go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I wanted you to finish your point. I thought you were done, but about the territories. Okay, fine. Yeah, go ahead. Taker or somebody like that, even Andre, although Andre's belt, he basically just surrendered it to DiBiase, or Bray, when someone like that's going to win the belt, program-wise, it makes sense for them to hold the belt if you're creating a chase scenario for somebody else. And this is the mountain they have to topple. Taker was champion from Mania 13 till SummerSlam that year because it created a chase for Brett as the Hart Foundation leader representing Canada in the Canada versus USA thing. So it created a chase scenario for him. And that was the match where Sean was a guest referee, hit Taker with the chair by accident, was forced to count the 3, and it created an after feud between them. So if Bray's going to win the belt, it's because it's creating a chase scenario for somebody else. I got to ask you a question. How do you see the upside of somebody like a Matt Riddle?
So I see Matt Riddle as a lot like Orange Cassidy.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is they have a gimmick right now that works for them and the fans. But it's my belief as a wrestling fan, old school wrestling fan, that if you're going to make that next jump, like knocking my microphone, you're going to make that next jump into those upper echelons, you can't depend on your gimmick. You have to change who you are. You have to become more serious. You have to become, something that people can get behind. And with Riddle, the hey bro, and coming out on the scooter and stuff, I saw little bits and pieces with him and Seth in this last pay-per-view match they had in the build-up to it, where he became a little bit more serious. And if you could see, RK bro, Matt Riddle, kind of get rid of that stupidness and get serious, I think he could be somebody who could make a name for himself.
Okay, fair enough. Actually, that's a really good way to put it, right? It limits his upside, just like Orange Cassidy. Limited upside, always be a fun attraction or anti-attraction in terms of just how funny he is, but it limits the upside, right?
Orange Cassidy is such a huge underdog that he can always wrestle from underneath, but if he got rid of the gimmick of the kicks and the different things like that, he could be that Rey Mysterio type star that could win a title and then automatically push himself into that superstardom and carry that for a long period of time.
But they have to be careful because the kicks, the lethargic shin kicks and the hands in the pockets are so over with the crowd that if you pivot from that and it doesn't work, you have to pivot back because it works, but it works on a limited upside basis. Like he'll always be someone you can put on a pay-per-view and people will love it. Now, whether he's first match or third from the end, right? Or second from the end in the right scenario. But if you get rid of that gimmick, it's hard to replace that because it's working. It's just not working from a world champion main events perspective.
But I think you've got to look at AEW as well as WWE. You have their hardcore fans that are always going to watch.
Yes.
And AEW fans are the folks who think, call them smart marks, whatever you want to call them, but they are the type of people who will cheer that kind of stuff because it's what they like.
Yeah.
Now the crowds are going to go nuts for that stuff, but are you growing your business at that point? And
which is at the end of the day, that's what you got to go with. Right. Okay. Fair enough.
If you're going to have like that million plus, under 2 million fans every week, and you're okay with that for your show, okay, fine. Keep doing what you're doing, but then stop signing all of these guys that you have because, we're going to go to ugly for me. It's for AEW. It's too many titles and too many people on the roster.
I was going to say that about the ugly for AEW because when I mentioned the ugly for WWE, the ugly for AEW was too thick of a roster, hard to say no. And Adam Cole comes free. You can't exactly say, I'm not going to hire you. Right?
But if you're going to hire him, what are you going to do with him?
Same thing with Saraya, right? Right now. What do you do with her?
And then you're still doing, we're going to do Forbidden Door. So we're going to bring in all these other wrestlers to come back through and help out. And it's like you have 3 hours of TV every week. You have X amount of wrestlers. You're never going to have them build any type of a feud because you don't have enough TV time. And
that's why Hangman's title reign didn't work as that well because they couldn't get him on camera enough.
And the guy who's on camera all the time is Jericho with his jerk off. Appreciation Society.
I knew you were going to go with that for the ugly on AEW.
Jericho is a talented legend in this business. He started off in, mid Smoky Mountain. He wrestled in Canada. He wrestled in ECW. He went to WCW. He was that first guy that left WCW, an up and coming star, and went to WWE and really maximized his potential.
Yes.
He comes to AEW and Tony lets him do what he wants, and it's just sad. Some of the stuff he's doing is just it's bad Vince McMahon wrestling.
There's a massive, I know that's your choice for the ugly for AEW, but there's a massive caveat on that. I cannot help myself. Every time Judas comes on, I gotta sing along. It's an attraction for me to watch AEW when Judas comes on.
Then Jericho needs to be a face, not a heel.
Okay, there we go.
Be a bad guy and have the fans sing his song. And Jericho shouldn't be a bad guy. He should be your, the baby face with all the experience. And
they did that for a while. Again, when they went against the Pinnacle, they did that, and it worked so well. When the Inner Circle went face against MJF and the Pinnacle, it worked for a while.
But I need to get him away from having a stable. He just needs to be Chris Jericho.
You have absolutely nothing for Jake Hager to do then.
Fire him. Fire him. You don't need him. What does he bring?
Bodyguard.
0.
Bodyguard. Big guy.
You have how many other guys on the roster that you could put them in that position?
But then here's the thing, right? A guy like, if you take a bodyguard like a Wardlow bodyguard, too much upside to keep in that role. Jake Hager is a limited upside guy who you can use as muscle for Chris Jericho on an as needed basis. Again, limited upside. I think
if he's a baby face, why does he have a bodyguard?
Yeah, okay. I see what you're saying now. Because when you think bodyguard, you think Shawn Michaels and Diesel when Shawn was a bad guy. You think MJF and Wardlow, and in both cases, what happened? The big bodyguard went on his own. So I see what you're saying.
That gives you the best, the bodyguard turns into the good guy. He becomes the face. He turns on his evil employer. Jericho doesn't need to have he's not helping these young wrestlers right now. They are getting lost in his gravity.
He did help Sammy for a while, and then Sammy made his own bed with the whole, dare I say, when he and his fiance split up, and then all of a sudden he was just walking around with Ty Conti. Daniel Garcia, someone who's got a lot of talent. He probably will say he owes a lot to Jericho. Some people might feel that he could have done it on his own, though. I don't know.
I think part of the other problem, and I think Tony started to fix this, is too many of the AEW guys had their own YouTube channels.
Mm-hmm.
So fans really got to see the behind the scenes stuff. And with Sammy especially, a lot of people loved his girlfriend, his fiance. He proposed to her, and then, it looks like he traded up. I hate to say that, but, and it killed poor Ty too. But they were smart because they turned it into an angle of them turning bad, but then they stuck them with Dan Lambert and the pretend MMA fighters who wanted to be wrestlers and Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page. With that
Lambert,
much,
yeah,
he was getting put
I
him
think
against Page.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Sammy, yeah, I know, and everyone gets lost in the shuffle because, even Darby Allin. He was largely considered the breakout star in 2020 for AEW. And he's kind of meandering right now. Yeah, he's still got Sting, so there's always that attraction factor, but he doesn't seem to have the momentum he had at one point in time.
It's because you didn't do anything with him. Look, somebody gets hot and the fans are behind him, you have to run with them. They have to put that, the proverbial rocket on their ass and see if they can shoot to stardom. Darby Allin if there's anybody who looks legitimate when he throws himself at people through the ring ropes or jumps, I mean, that guy really looks like it's honest to God, he's going to kill himself. Run with it. You know, he doesn't need a title because he's already over, but let him have some big matches where he picks up some big victories and then he gets made. And then you've got superstars who are young and who can carry the AEW brand into the future.
Well, they're going to do that with MJF, assuming MJF wins at Full Gear, the belt.
I hate to tell you this, but MJF's gone in 2024.
I heard he just got a raise, though. I heard Tony agreed to give him a mid-contract raise.
I don't think it's about a raise at this point. I think he's just so sick of the bullshit in AEW that he's going to jump to WWE.
Then Tony Khan has until 2024 to make sure he doesn't lose this guy. And it starts with a title win at Full Gear.
Yeah, but he wins, but who does he get to face after that title win?
Is he even a heel or a face? Because everybody's cheering him right now. That's why that hence the hesitation in my. There's a lot of answers. Like there's a lot of answers, but I could have named any one of 10 to 20 people. But the if is where's his program headed? Because he's kind of in this weird tweener territory where he has bad guy antics, but people like him, and it's not in the Stone Cold Steve Austin anti-hero way. It's in the that's the thing. Right?
It's the smart mark cheering because they appreciate his character, not understanding that it's ruining him.
I mean, if you talk to the backstage bookers, you ask them the same question you asked me, they probably would have come up with a bunch of different names. But I'm also trying to think of an easy scenario for him to walk into, and there isn't one. There just isn't an easy opponent for him to face. Does he face Wardlow right now? Wardlow's got a lot of momentum. You don't kill either one of those guys' momentum. Right,
but does Wardlow really have the momentum because he's stuck with Samoa Joe?
Yeah, Samoa Joe. Sorry, you're right. I'm thinking of the Wardlow that just won the TNT title a couple months back. You're thinking of the Wardlow from the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, if you take that Wardlow that won that TNT title and you let him just continue to run through the roster until he becomes that threat, then yes. But that's what they need. Tony, I would love to see him do is get behind somebody and push them.
And you know what he needs to do? Give Wardlow the Goldberg, like the true Goldberg push. Because unlike Goldberg in the 90s, Wardlow can have a big match.
Yeah.
Right? And he can have a longer match. Right? He's not jackhammer spear, let's see you later. Right? So if he wanted to get behind somebody, that would make sense. And then create that rematch for MJF. He got crushed. But now he's the champion. He can't afford to get crushed twice.
No, and now that's a match I want to see. I would pay money for a pay-per-view to watch MJF versus Wardlow. Mm-hmm. Besides watching Hepatitis Mox, John Moxley bleed every freaking time he goes out on television.
You know, I'm glad we have Mox on the roster, and I think he was absolutely the right guy to win the interim title when CM Punk was gone for a while. I did think that Daniel Bryan made more sense to win the title coming out of Grand Slam, AEW Grand Slam, because a couple reasons. One, if he's the one who has to defend against MJF, that could be an all-time classic because of his in-ring skills of Daniel Bryan. If imagine an MJF Daniel Bryan main event match at Full Gear, how entertaining that would be. Also, I almost feel like MJF versus Mox, I almost feel like it's a foregone conclusion MJF's going to win the belt. Tony's got to keep him happy. It's his time to shine. If Bryan had won it and only been champion for less than 2 months, there's still the question, is it time to end Daniel Bryan's run? And you will have that mystery kind of hanging in the air. That's kind of where I was going about it. So Mox being champion versus MJF, that's good for the mic battles. That's good for the buildup. That's good for the promos. But I kind of feel like they just have to hand MJF the belt at this point. Let him run with it. Maybe you disagree. I'd love to hear other.
I agree. I think Danielson would have been gold because even Punk coming back, that gives you Punk and Danielson in a pay-per-view, which is an old Ring of Honor match. That's an old WWE match. And they can go. And then even if Danielson keeps the title and he goes against MJF, MJF can't be the I've been held back because of my size and this. And Danielson can cut promos too.
Yes. Danielson can cut the chemistry between Brian and MJF would actually work really well now that I think about it. It wouldn't. I was thinking that Mox and MJF would have very good chemistry because Brian is a little less, like he's a little more generic in how he speaks, but when he plays up the underdog parts.
Well, and you only remember him from WWE. You don't remember the American Dragon from Ring of Honor.
No, I've barely watched Ring of Honor, so you're right. I don't know that.
So he can definitely cut the promos when he needs to.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I've seen some good ones out of him, but I wasn't sure that he was that he could do it in the pay-per-view lead up. But you're right. MJF wouldn't be able to play I'm an undersized guy because he's going against an undersized guy. MJF, if anything's the big guy going into that match. So I don't know. I just feel like MJF's going to win the belt, and he has to because Tony's got to keep him happy. He can't lose that asset, right?
Well, and I think that MJF gives you the heel that you need to have the belt, but you also need to make sure you have somebody that you can run that program with against MJF that makes sense. There has to be a buildup of why you want to see them fight. And until you get to that point, that's what's missing right now. I need what's next. You're planning 3 or 4 months ahead on your programming of, okay, MJF's going to win the belt after this. Then we need to start building tension between him and somebody else, not William Regal, who won't wrestle him. Is it going to be Claudio? Jericho just ruined Claudio because he took the Ring of Honor title from him. Danielson's been ruined by Jericho because he's lost two out of 3 matches to Jericho. So then it's going to be MJF versus Jericho because it's going to be heel versus heel again. And it's like, no.
That's a good point.
MJF, but they need to be put on a collision course against each other.
Well, I do hope that Punk is back but oh no, wait. There's all these rumors about him getting fired though, like outright fired.
Yeah, like contract buyout.
Yeah, so who knows what's going to happen there. But I will say this. When we get the Full Gear, I kind of feel like that the co-main event is going to be Christian Cage versus Jungle Boy. That match has to make Jungle Boy. No?
It can't. Jungle Boy's already ruined.
No.
You have ruined Jungle Boy already.
No. He should get the win over Christian Cage at Full Gear. You got a month to build that up.
But that's the problem, though. He's lost how many times to, Jurassic Kane or to Christian, and then Jurassic Kane goes back to Luchasaurus, but then he goes back to Jurassic Kane, and then Christian's insulting his mom and his sister, and it's like it's the worst feud that's ever been created.
So you shake it up.
Jack is not ready yet. It's so horribly booked. It's so horribly booked.
It's also easily fixable because, all right, I'm going to say 2 things here. I'm going to take the Wayback Machine a year when Lance Archer was basically just jobber to the stars for a while. And they fixed him temporarily. I understand Tony got an influx of talent after this and wasn't able to give Archer some momentum. But after being jobber to the stars, he did win a hardcore match for the IWGP US title against Moxley on Dynamite. And that course corrected Archer for a little while. Now, a month later, CM Punk joined the company, and we were back to where's Lance Archer again. So I understand that argument has only so much upside.
Just think about what you just said. Archer won a title from another company against John Moxley, for a title that's not even yours, and it was one victory, and that rehabilitated him. No. To the fans of AEW, the smart ones, sure, I can see that, but they're going to buy the pay-per-view.
Okay, fair enough.
It's the people that you need to bring in. They need to be able to understand why these two guys are fighting. Look, I'm going to watch my Peacock because I've got it part of my Comcast thing, so I watch WWE pay-per-views. Am I going to buy it? Hell no. But I'll watch it because I'm a fan of professional wrestling.
Okay, fair enough.
AEW, you got to pay for that stuff. And it's like $49-$50.
I go to my friend Jeff's. I go to my friend Jeff's house. You know the guy who sells me all of his reject Transformers? Whenever I say I'm buying, whenever I buy a Transformers Holy Grail, and thank you, Hans, for joining in the chat. Good to see you. This guy, Jeff, is a big AEW wrestling fan. Zazel jumped over too. Hope you had a good stream. I saw the first little bit before we jumped over to here. I understand it only fixed Archer very minimally, not long term. But what I'm saying is that's an example of what can happen, and they won't drop the ball with Jungle Boy when they come around to fixing him, because he's one of the 4 pillars of AEW, as they always call him. I think what you really need is something to shake it up, like a steel cage match, blow off match between him and Christian Cage, second from the end of Full Gear. Bam. Maybe third from the end if you need a palate cleanser, and maybe if it's too hot and heavy of a match. But that could be the co-main event of Full Gear very easily. Christian Cage, Jungle Boy, something like a steel cage match. Big stipulation match to make him crush Christian Cage once and for all.
But then for Jungle Boy to be really taken serious and be created a star, this feud has went on 6-7 months too long. It should have been Lucha Kane turns to Kanosaurus, and then he fights Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy beats him. Then that sets up Christian Cage and him. He beats Christian Cage cleanly, center of the ring, 1, 2, 3, and then Jungle Boy's moved on to the next feud that's building him to being superstardom.
I understand. And what I'll say is this. Yes, the feuds run longer. Even I'll admit, as an AEW fanboy, that it's run long. If you cap it off with an epic blow-off match, no one's going to remember that the feud went on longer than it should have.
But what has Christian Cage won? Nothing in AEW.
Okay, I was going to say, was he not Impact World Champion a little while ago?
Another company's champion that's in your company that your pillar is finally beating.
This is where the debate really begins, I think, Ryan. I think we just started the real debate.
Yeah. Well, and hey, WWE, I'm going to give them shit too, because the simple fact of the matter is Vince McMahon ran this company into the ground.
He did.
You got so much talent because you need to see some big-ass bodybuilder because you don't understand what wrestling fans want today.
Yep.
You let Bray Wyatt go. You let Karrion Kross go. You let Braun Strowman
Braun
go.
Strowman.
You changed Walter's name to Gunther because it's the stereotypical German name. And then
he's your biggest NXT UK guy, and you made him Gunther instead of Walter.
Exactly. And then you're like, you need to lose weight because you don't understand that the guy looks like a badass the way that he was. And you take Sheamus and you dress him in the stupid brown coat and a bowler hat, and he looks like he's a guy who flashes his willy on the street corner because of the stupid outfits that he's in, because you stereotype every foreign person that you have.
Mm-hmm. So I understand all that, and I have no argument against any of that.
But they did. For 2 years, for the year that they were in whatever they called it, the Thunderdome, right?
Yes.
You have one of the best production companies, the WWE, is that. They can do cinematic matches that blow your mind. Undertaker versus AJ. AJ. Well, I was going to call him Soccer Mom hairstyles. It was amazing. Guy's got the best hair I've ever seen. It was amazing. You don't have fans in the God blessed stadium. Why are you not doing backstage promos like you used to? Why aren't you doing some hardcore matches around the stadium? It's not like you have to have the fans watching because they're watching on a computer screen. It doesn't matter. It's that short-sighted vision that always pissed me off about WWE.
Baron, and I have no rebuttal on that because I agree 100%. I will say the thing about the other promotions titles when it comes to AEW and, you know, Christian winning the Impact title and the Ring of Honor and the New Japan IWGP title. I will say this. Was the NWA not always a governing body title and somebody from World Class or Jim Crockett or AWA could win it? It's a collaborative thing. They've kind of recreated some of the chemistry from the territories by working together.
But when you talk about the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, they toured around to help make those territories work. What I mean by when I'm putting down, look, TNA or Impact, and then, you know, any of your the Japanese wrestling, it is great to have those champions versus champions matches. It is awesome. When I look at Christian, who won the Impact title, right?
Yeah.
He took it off of Kenny Omega.
Yes.
He ended up losing that title to somebody from Impact. Jungle Boy Jack, who's supposed to be one of your four pillars, and the kid has all the talent in the world. He looks like $1 million. He's handsome as all hell. I talked about AJ having great hair. Jungle Boy has great hair. He looks like a baby face. You have to nurture and develop. Paul Heyman said it best. Accentuate the positives and hide the negatives.
Yep.
And you have to protect that homegrown talent. It's a special thing. You that's your most important thing as a booker is it's MJF, it's Jungle Boy, it's Darby Allin, and it's Britt Baker,
Sammy Guevara.
Yep, let's say those 5 people right there.
It was the 4 pillars, and then CM Punk made the joke that MJF was replaced with Britt Baker. So a lot of people make her one of the pillars because she's the pillar of the women's division.
She's supposed to be the heel, but yet when she comes out, people do the DMD. That tells you right there that you need to really think about changing her from being a heel to a face.
So
Jericho, you know, they sing freaking Judas. Make him a face. Put the title on
that. I agree. That one I can't. Because when he was a face, it worked better for me. And to be honest, I know Hans Chow coined the terms for my podcast TKO, but where do you think I get when I go? You know, as I go TKO, where does that come from? Britt Baker, DMD. That's exactly where it comes from. And a lot of people who don't watch AEW don't know that's why I'm doing it, right? But right. You probably picked up on it right away. You picked up on it the first time I did it. Right,
but it's the fans tell you what they want. Go with it. Roman Reigns was not getting over as the face of WWE.
Not at all. People just jumped on it right now, right? So, or jumped down his throat. They just kept booing him until he became a heel, and all of a sudden, everybody liked him.
You put Paul Heyman with him, which he doesn't need Paul Heyman to talk for him, but you do that instantaneously. He's made man. It's scary what they can do, but. Yeah, no, I mean, there's so much talent on the AEW roster, and there's so much potential. And I think the one guy who's holding that company back right now is Tony Khan.
Unfortunately, he's in over his head. What do you do? Like Eric Bischoff said that he wouldn't want to be Tony Khan right now because too much talent to manage, and you can't exactly turn these guys away at the door. They're looking for work. They weren't happy in WWE at the time. What do? You got to hire them, right? Miro comes free. You got to hire him. Adam Cole comes free. Hire him. Saraya. How do you say no to that level of talent? And you try to find a place for them on the card. And he probably didn't intend for people, you know, to get buried. Like all of a sudden, Darby Allin seems less important than he once was. But he had no choice. There's only so much TV time, right?
But then that's when you have to start letting talent go.
Well, so yeah, and that's where like the Joey Janela's start going. Unfortunately,
the Dark Order. Bye. Dark Order. Bye-bye. Why am I giving you two?
That was a big mishandling, Dark Order, because I understand that Brody was the Dark Order, but why did you even keep them together if you weren't going to give them a proper leader? Or
Brody was the original Dark Order guy. It was going to be Oh, Scrolls. Marty
Hardy?
Scroll.
Matt Hardy?
No. Marty,
Marty
Scroll.
Scroll. Oh, Marty Scroll. Okay, yeah, the indie guy.
Yeah, because he was buddies with, the Jacksons.
Ah, okay. So that's true.
All Buck and Warrior Buck.
But I do think that Dark Order, they dragged them way too long. Like, yes, Hangman went there for a while and kind of played the superstar, even if he wasn't the leader, but it didn't really work. It just gave them something to do. Now the Dark Order is basically disbanded, and I don't blame it one bit, right? I mean, if they could have hired Bray to take over the Dark Order, maybe that could have worked.
Get rid of them. They're jobbers. They're not serious. You already have enough factions in AEW.
I know. You have so many factions. And the thing is, a guy like Stu Grayson had so much talent, but all he was ever going to be was a worker's worker, and it gave him somewhere to be, right?
And yeah, he's too small.
He's too small, but he's a worker. He's a worker's worker. Yeah. Like, I really liked Stu Grayson. Silver had a lot of charisma. Uno just has the mask. He's like their spokesperson, but he just has the mask. Anna would have worked if Brody was still there.
But Anna's another one where it's let her get some experience in ring time and, use your YouTube stuff to develop a lot of these younger people before you put them out on your main TV.
Well, Anna has Soraya. Maybe this is subjective, but she has Soraya level looks, if you ask me, right? I think her potential is high, like sky high. I just think that when she wrestles, she still looks like she's trying not to screw up.
Mm-hmm.
Her mic skills are getting better. Her gestures, the way she addresses the crowd, the inflections in her voice, everything around it's getting better. But when she gets in the ring, she still looks a little bit raw, a little bit green.
That's because most of the women that they have are green as grass.
Mm-hmm.
Jade Cargill, $1 million body, awesome look, but she is green as grass. And she's all
about the look, though. Like, I think Anna has way more upside than Jade, but Jade is sellable because of her size and power, right? Yep. Like, I look at Anna and I just see so much potential, but I don't see it being realized because they haven't been able to properly pivot from her since she was supposed to basically be Brody's apprentice. When she came in as like, Brody had drafted her to be part of the Dark Order, I was like, this is going to take Anna to the next level. They haven't been able to do anything with her since his passing.
Yeah, but she still needs to get practice in.
I know.
They don't have house shows, which I think hurts AEW because that's when these wrestlers could get better.
They have Dark, but a lot of times they're not using their main people on Dark. They're like using it as an audition to get more people. And I'm like, no, you don't need more people right now. You need to audition the Anna Jays, and you need to give the John Silver something else to do because he's funny as hell, right?
Right.
Anyway,
yep.
I don't know.
And that's on YouTube, so it's not like you can have an hour and a half, 2 hours to have them wrestle and get your people that repetitive time in the ring to work through stuff. And that'd be a great place to start some of the feuds. Like, get a couple matches on Dark where you're like, hey, these two are butting heads right now. And then all of a sudden they're on Rampage or Dynamite fighting. And then you can say, hey, you go check out Dark. This is where this feud started. And you do a little vignette package explaining why they're fighting.
Yep. You've got Dark, you've got Elevation.
Yep.
Right.
So they've got those shows they use them for.
They just haven't been. So anyway, man, I feel like we just started. I feel like we just started 10 minutes ago.
I know. But I know you've got to get to eat dinner, and I know we're going to have to do this again now. We need to do it like the dark side of the territories or some sort of just, the dark side of AEW or the dark side of WWE. So.
I still need to get with you, Gaz, and Zazel and finish our talk about the Monday Night Wars. Because we talked about the first couple of years of that, but with TKO airing at such a weird hour. And I thought about doing it for tomorrow's show, but tomorrow I only have an hour, literally, and then I have a hard stop, then I got to pick up my son from class. So, then I got a toy show the whole next day. So hence the shortened TKO tomorrow.
But hey, we have plenty of time to discuss the Monday Night Wars, because that was some of the best times to be a wrestling fan.
Absolutely.
When you weren't scared to say you're a wrestling fan, and kayfabe went by the wayside, and when you're doing 7, 8 shares, millions of people watching, pay-per-views were selling out as quickly as they could put them out there. So and just to let you know, Hans, I'm a huge Bray Wyatt fan, so it's let him in. So, but thank you everyone for joining us here on the Island of Misfit Toys. We were talking the good, the bad, and the ugly of professional wrestling of AEW and WWE. I think we are on quite possibly let's just say the dawn's early light of a great run in professional wrestling. I think it's going to get better. I think Triple H taking over WWE might help Tony by thinning out his roster and letting WWE run with some of these guys, but become a little bit more polished and still give wrestlers the ability to go between the two companies and make a living. So thanks everyone for stopping by. Ken, where can everybody find you?
Usually fighting with Ralph, going back and forth, not agreeing on most things. You can't see it right now, but he's trying to pull the belt away right now. That's what's going on. So if I'm not fighting with Ralph, you can find me on the Toy Kennections YouTube channel, doing some level of OCD, scripting, editing, filming, getting pissed off at myself and starting over 6, 7, 8 times, and then doing the TKO podcast and not giving that up any week, even when I'm not around. So,
ladies and gentlemen, this is the hardest working man in YouTube right now. It's Toy Kennections, Ken. So thank you for joining me, my friend. Have a great night, and we will talk to you all soon. Have a good night, everyone.